Number three, leverage. Leverage is taking a bet that the appreciation will be greater than the cost of borrowing. And when it works, it's great. But when it doesn't, you're out on the streets like most of the people during the housing crash. Um, if middle class people went and borrowed hundreds of thousands of dollars from the bank to take add interest to take a 30-year gamble on the price of an illiquid asset that wasn't a house, they would be labeled insane. Okay, so if I told you that I went to the bank and I gave them 50 grand and I owe them $700,000 that I'm betting on anything else besides a house, you'd think that was like a crazy risk. But when people do it with a house, people think like it's a smart decision. It's $700,000 in debt. Okay, there's no such thing as good debt. Good debt does not exist. There's just debt. Okay. It's true that you can profit from a house when you're right, but as I said, the profit is not what you think it is. You've also bought into a giant house of cards that can easily collapse and leave you with nothing or less than nothing. So let's break it down in terms of numbers. Let's say you buy $100,000 house, which doesn't really exist anymore, at a 10% down payment of $10,000. That means you've taken out a $90,000 loan from the bank. With only a 10% correction in housing prices to $90,000, you now lose 100% of your investment. Your savings are completely wiped out. At a 20% correction in housing prices, you're down 200%, and now you owe the bank $10,000. Now not only are your savings wiped out, but you owe $10,000. And a 20% correction is 100% possible. Okay, it's possible without the market even crashing. So leverage is a double-edged sword. If you bet right, it works for you, but when you bet wrong, you get stung. Okay. Next up is commitment. So signing a 30-year commitment to anything, in my opinion, is retarded. Let alone one with a 6% interest and on 500% leverage. To me, to be able to sign a contract like that, you need to be able to guarantee 30 years of uninterrupted income. I mean, can you guys do that? I would say no, especially if you have a job, because then your resources are based on someone else giving them to you. That's not an investment. That's a Hail Mary. A traditional mortgage might have worked in the previous generation where you had a job for life. You retired with a gold watch. But those days are long gone, guys. As we said before, the average person lasts 3 years at a job. Not only that, but is your skill set going to be even valuable in 20 years? Prior to starting to make money online and moving my income online, my most valuable skill set was my sales ability. And a lot of that was phone sales. I mean, 20 years from now, are guys still going to be cold calling and selling people over the phone? Probably not. So, you got to be real careful about that, especially if you're in a field like tech, and you're a programmer. It's like, are your skills going to be valuable 20 years from now? Not unless you keep insanely up to date with how things are going. So like that commitment to me is insane. Not to mention that you're committed to something in a physical location. So part of the reason I was able to come out here and travel is because I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have any type of commitment tying me to Toronto, where there's 8 months of winter a year. Okay. Signing a mortgage is almost as bad as signing a lifelong contract based on a woman's emotions in a country where traditional women don't exist and half of marriages end in divorce. See what I did there? Again, guys, marriage, very fucking dangerous. Also, 80% of mortgages aren't kept to maturity. So the contract that you sign, the commitment that you sign is not only retarded, but you're going to probably break it anyways and then sign the commitment somewhere else. So doesn't make sense. Number 5, captivity. As a homeowner, you no longer have the option to move. As a renter, you can choose a short commute to your wage slavery cell if you get another job by living close to the subway line. But I mean, I can't imagine what life was like for people. The majority of people in Toronto had to live 2 hours out into the suburbs because housing was so expensive in Toronto. which means they had like an hour and a half, 2 hour commute to work, worked a shitty 8 hour day for someone they hated, and then drove 2 hours to get home. How is that like a life? I mean, that to me is my nightmare. Yet people do this to themselves every day of the year. Um, so by buying a house, you are captive to a location.